Ready to turn your brilliant podcast idea into reality? If you've been dreaming about launching a podcast, there's never been a better time to start. The podcasting world is thriving, and your unique voice is exactly what it needs. I am thrilled to invite you to my free live masterclass, Podcasting 101, How to Start, Record, and Profit from Your Show. And I only teach it live once a year. In this 1-hour masterclass, you'll learn how to start podcasting with equipment you already own, create content that attracts listeners around the clock, and make money from your show in ways that go beyond sponsorships. As my gift for joining me live, you'll receive my ultimate equipment checklist featuring my exact professional setup, plus budget-friendly recommendations that'll have you sounding like a pro from episode 1. You'll walk away with a clear action plan and everything you need to finally move from idea to launched podcast. Claim your spot now at freepodcastclass.com. That's freepodcastclass.com. The world is waiting to hear what you have to say. Join me at freepodcastclass.com. This episode is supported by What Should I Do With My Money from Morgan Stanley. This podcast makes getting advice about your money less intimidating. I checked out the episode about early retirement on What Should I Do With My Money, and honestly, I couldn't stop nodding along. It really got me thinking about what financial freedom actually looks like, whether that's being able to take time off without panicking, switching careers, or just having enough saved that you're not constantly stressed about money. The fear of never having enough while still wanting to actually enjoy life, I think we've all been there. Maybe you're wondering if you can ever get ahead or if building any kind of financial cushion is even possible with everything else going on. What I loved was hearing about how you can build flexibility into your finances with smart investing and planning, no matter where you're starting from. It made financial freedom feel less like some impossible dream and more like something you can work towards step by step. Search for What Should I Do With My Money in your podcast player, and we'll also include a link in the show notes. My thanks to What Should I Do With My Money and Morgan Stanley for their support. And so you can do like nurture and attract, but I would say pick one main goal of like, this is the result I'm tracking here. It's not downloads. It's how do I get people off of the podcast and somewhere where I can connect with them on a deeper level. I'm Jenna Kutcher, and I help you trade hustle for purpose and build a business that gives you the life you actually want to live. From a $300 Craigslist camera to a 7-figure business I run from home, I've learned that success isn't just about what you do, it's about how you live. Here, you'll get strategies that work, systems that give you your time back, and steps that turn your effort into results and impact. If you're ready for clarity, confidence, and a business that feels as good as it looks, you're in the right place. This is the Goal Digger Podcast. Have you ever thought about starting a podcast, but then you talk yourself out of it because it felt too overwhelming or too technical, or you're worried that nobody would listen? Well, you're not alone. And today's guest is proof that you don't have to have it all figured out to launch something truly powerful. Stacy Smith is a full-time teacher, a mom, and a proud graduate of the Podcast Lab, which is my signature podcasting program. She is also the host of the Biking Wellness Podcast and founder of Sassy Cycling, where she helps women ditch diet culture and start moving their bodies from a place of love. What makes Stacy's story so special isn't that she just launched her own show, which is, by the way, a huge deal, but it's that she launched from her passion while juggling real life, and she stayed committed even when it got hard, which is something we're going to talk about today. So inside of this coaching session, Stacy flips the mic and asks me questions that come up after launching, like, how do I grow my show with limited time? How do I stay aligned with my values while still marketing what sells? How do I know if my podcast is working if the numbers feel slow? If you are wondering whether starting a podcast is worth it or how to actually keep one going when you have a full plate, well, this conversation is meant for you. And if you're ready to finally get your show out into the world, I've totally got you. Register right now for my free class. It's called Podcasting 101, How to Start, Record, and Profit from Your Show. You can go to freepodcastclass.com. Now, inside of this 1-hour training, I'm going to share with you the first 3 steps to adding a podcast to your business, to your life, and how it can really transform what it is that you're doing or what it is that you want to do. Again, that's freepodcastclass.com. I'll walk you through gear. I'll walk you through through monetization strategies. I'll walk you through how to add it to your plate because it's a lot easier than you're making it out to be in your head. So save your seat at freepodcastclass.com. And without further ado, Stacy Smith, welcome to the Goal Digger Podcast. All right, Stacy, thank you so much for coming on the Goal Digger Podcast today. I'm so excited to spend time with you.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, okay, so let's kind of paint the picture for our audience. And then you came up with some really great questions. So we'll dive into those, but kind of give us like where you're at. What does your business look like? What are you working on these days? And then we'll dive into your questions.
Sure. So I own a business where I teach women how to lose weight for the last time by focusing on what their bodies can do. So I've been in business for, I want to say about 5 years or so now, but I'm still very much in the messy middle. I'm still trying to figure things out. I also have a full-time job. I have a 10-year-old son. And so I have a podcast that I just started because I purchased the podcast lab. I've wanted to start a podcast ever since Serial came out. I said, this is what I need to be doing. I had a radio show in college, a country western radio show, and a pop hardcore music radio show in college. So I knew that I could figure it out, but I just needed the roadmap to get it going. And so I purchased the podcast lab, and it literally had everything I needed, but nothing I didn't to finally make this happen, which was the most important part for me because I can get so bogged down in details. So I purchased the podcast lab and I went through the modules, I went through the lessons, and then I got my podcast out in the world in March, and I've been releasing an episode. It's the Biking Wellness Podcast every week since then, and it's been so much fun.
Oh my gosh. Okay, I am obsessed. Congratulations.
Thank you.
It's so fun to like when you said you had like a radio show. When we were kids, we had this like little tuner that my brother made me believe. I would have to fact check if it could actually like get onto radio waves, but we would like host our own radio shows back and forth, be like, no, over to you. And we like, and so it is so fun to see some of those threads and those through lines in our life of like, no, like I have been preparing for this. I've been meant to do this. So I'm so excited for you. Okay. So now that we know where you're at, let's dive into your questions. You came up with some amazing questions, and no matter who's listening, there are so many applicable pieces, whether you're like Stacy and you've wanted to have a podcast or you've never even considered one.
Yeah, so the first question I have is from a marketing standpoint, because I want to make money doing this. I love it. And really, I am driven to help women lose weight for the last time by focusing on how awesome their body is and what it can do and what it's capable of. Because it wasn't until 5 years ago when I figured that out that I was able to lose my weight for the last time. I had struggled for as long as I could remember. The first time I was teased about my weight was on the bus in kindergarten. And so I had all of this pain. But when I discovered actually finding a way to move my body that I loved, that was when I could appreciate it for everything that it can do. And I was finally able to lose my weight for the last time. But the weight loss wasn't what I really wanted or needed. What I really wanted and needed was to actually believe in my ability and all of the things that I am capable of. And the weight loss was kind of just the cherry on top after, years of struggling with that and feeling like I wasn't thin enough and I wasn't good enough. And so my question is, how do I market this without feeling sleazy and without feeling icky? Because I know that women think that they want to lose weight, but what they really want is to just feel really good.
Okay, I love this question. And I feel like the topic of weight loss is either appealing or triggering, right? It's like almost this visceral thing where women are either like hook, line, and sinker, yes, or like totally repelled by even the words, right? And so it's a really interesting area. And I think to your point, it's because it holds so many stories and beliefs, right? Like your weight is so tied to what you believe about yourself, what you believe about how you look, how you show up in the world, like all of those things. It's so deeply intricate for every single individual. And so what's interesting to me is like this thought of just like marketing in general, especially when you have a mission that is bigger than what you're selling, is oftentimes rooted in this idea of like, sell them what they think they want, but give them what they actually need, right? And so what's interesting is, in my opinion, you have two strong angles you can go after. And I learned this like years ago, and it like blew my mind, is because there are two types of marketers out there. So the first marketer is somebody who is painting possibility for other people, right? So I am a possibility painter through and through. All of my marketing is like, imagine this. This could happen. You know, like I freaking love the possibility. That's where I want to live. I want to live in what's possible. But there's another type of marketing, which is running from the pain. Okay. And running from the pain of, you could not go on any longer in this way. You have to make a change. You have to make, you have to shift. And so what's interesting about the world of marketing is that both sides of the coin can be true, and both sides of the coin will reach different people. And so what I think is really interesting, and like the nerd in me would be curious about, is what would it look like to be the bridge for what people like, for where they are and where they want to go, but to see which bridge your audience is more likely to take, the possibility painting or running from the pain. And I now, once I discovered that, which was like the biggest, is like somebody turned the lights on for me, because I'm like, I am literally just a possibility painter over here. When I realized like 50% of people are really just looking to get away from something that no longer works or they can't go on with any longer, it made me realize that our marketing can have space for both of those things, right? It can have space for painting the possibility, and it can also have space for the pain of what you cannot endure. And so I think what's interesting is that you are selling a deeper transformation than weight loss, right? And you know that like on the other side of this is a life that is more energized and more vibrant, and an identity that actually feels like it fits. And I think that is what's so beautiful. And so what I'd be curious about, and where I would probably nerd out, is like even doing podcast episodes with different titles of like, one week, do an episode about painting the possibility, and the next week, do an episode about running away from the pain, and see if the data leads you anywhere. Do it, like having fun with that. Because one of the things I love about you is you're like, this is so fun. Like, people need more fun in their lives. And like, podcasting is so fun. And so when you can kind of make getting insight and data fun, it also can help you get the information of like, where are the tides going? And so I would just say that that's where I would start with that. And I don't think that it's sleazy or disingenuous to sell an end result that will help unlock something for people. But again, with weight loss, I think it's like either inviting or triggering. And that's where you have to figure out, like, do I want to toe the line and be in that space? Like, do I feel comfortable? Because some people are like, bring it on. And I'm like this most little sensitive, delicate little flower. And so, yeah, I think that would just be really interesting. So I think like, how can you be a leader in this? How can you bridge people in towards that transformation? How can you both paint the possibility while also kind of hit the levels of pain so that both sides of the coin can see? Does that make sense?
Oh my gosh, that makes perfect sense. I actually love it. And I love that you brought up the fun, because I hated exercise my whole life.
Yes.
I basically, when my body changed in puberty, nothing worked anymore. I was a competitive swimmer, and I loved being able to be the fastest person out there. And then when my body wasn't doing it anymore, I convinced myself that all movement was bad, and that I should just not bother, that this body was not built to do all of the things that other people's bodies were. So when I was able to finally, my husband bought me a bike for our anniversary.
Yeah.
And I was just, okay, is this really going to work? Because I got hit by a car when I was 10 and I haven't ridden my bike since.
Yeah.
So I jumped right in and I gave it a shot, and I just loved it. And I realized, oh my gosh, this is my thing. Yeah. This is the movement that I have been looking for my entire life. It's fun. I actually want to do it. Yeah. And so if I can kind of help other people realize just how fun it is to get out there and to find that one thing, it can be anything. And anybody can do it. And
Yeah.
so thinking about, okay, I can paint the possibility
Yes.
of that fun,
Yep.
or I can say, hey, I know where you've been. I know that you've been struggling with this as long as I have.
Yep.
And this is how we can make that pain go away. I think it's such a great idea to test
Yeah.
both and, like you said, nerd out a little bit on it
Yeah.
and see.
That's where like a lot of times I'll like look at my sales pages and I'll be like, "Oh, this is all possibility painting. That's fantastic." But this person doesn't even know that I understand where they're at, right? And so it's so fun. Okay, can we talk about bras for a second? Because honestly, for the longest time, I just accepted that being uncomfortable was just a part of being a woman. Like those underwire digs, the straps that leave marks on your shoulders, spending half of your day readjusting everything. I thought that was just life. But then I kept hearing about the Skims Fits Everybody collection everywhere. And I finally gave in and I tried it, and I totally get the hype now. The fabric is ridiculously soft and stretchy, but not in that cheap way where it loses its shape. It literally feels like it was made for your body specifically. And I'm not even kidding when I say I forget I'm wearing anything half the time. It is one of those things where you don't realize how uncomfortable you've been until you finally experience what comfortable actually feels like. Now, trust me on this one, you just need to try it. Shop Skims Fits Everybody collection at skims.com. Once you place your order, make sure to let them know we sent you. Just select podcast in the survey and choose the Gold Digger podcast in the drop-down menu that follows. This podcast is brought to you by Mercury, banking that helps entrepreneurs do more with their money. Okay, I remember in the early days of my entrepreneurship journey, clients would literally mail me checks, and then I would have to drive all the way to the bank to deposit them. It took me literal years to make things go digital, and I am ashamed to admit I still have a filing cabinet with paper contracts because I'm way too afraid to throw them away. But that's the beauty of growth, right? Like you learn what systems serve you and which ones hold you back. Mercury is one of those systems that just works. Where traditional banking websites and apps are clunky and hard to use, Mercury is meticulously designed to make doing just about anything with your money feel effortless. And the best part is, it flexes to fit all types of businesses. Ready to see what powerful banking can do for your business? Visit mercury.com to apply in minutes. Mercury is a financial technology company, not a bank. For important details, check the show notes. Okay, what's your next question?
Okay, so this is a big one.
Yes.
If you were to start a podcast from scratch in 2025, like I did in March, 6 months in, what would be your must do's, your must haves? How would you approach it given that there's, frankly, a little more competition now than there was when you started?
Yeah. Okay. So yes, there's more competition, but there's also more listeners. So I love that because I'm like, podcasting is so exciting right now because there are no other mediums that are growing like podcasts. And I always bring this up because I think maybe why I love podcasting so like deep in my soul is because podcast listeners listen to podcasts plural. It's not like you are trying to be the one and only podcast that anyone listens to. If somebody listens to a podcast, they probably listen to 10 podcasts, right? Like the diversity of shows that I tune into on a weekly basis span Bravo TV all the way to health, all the way to business, all the way to authors. Like, you know what I mean? It's like so this
true.
Beautiful living room where you are invited in. And so what I love about it is it's like you are already going to a market that's on a platform that has habits that is ready to just like adopt it. And so what I would do first, and something I think you did fantastically well, is have clarity. So like, who is your person? Nail your who. Nail the transformation promise before anything else. And, you know, when I look at you and like what you're teaching and how you're doing it, I think people could have a fear of like, oh, that is too niched in. And I'm like, no. In today's era, you have to have clarity. If you are missing this one piece and you are trying to be the podcast for everyone, you will ultimately be the podcast for no one. So you like gold star, nailed it. The second thing I will say, and why I was also so excited to sit down with you, is like your audio is going to be good because you're a podcaster, right? And I think that I can say this because out of the 900 plus episodes we have released on this show, there have been many that did not have great audio. In fact, that was like a sticking point. I mean, a girl sitting in the front seat of a parked car with iPhone headphones is not going to have great audio. And that's exactly where the show was born. You could get away with that back in 2016. 2025 is a different ballgame. And so you don't have to have fancy production. That's not at all what I'm saying. Like, not at all. But I think that having something that is easy to listen to and desirable is great. Funny story. The other day I was on a call and Drew was on the other line and we were talking to somebody and he's like, babe, what are you doing right now? And I was like, oh, I'm spraying the carpet. There's a stain I'm trying to get out. He's like, can you stop? Because I can hear every little squirt coming out of that bottle. And I was like, oh man, yeah, totally forgot about that. So sorry. And it's like, that drives anyone crazy. And so when you're listening to a podcast with crappy audio, you're going to shut it off and find something that's better. And so good, like not fancy production, just a good microphone. And then the thing I want to commend you on is just consistency. So I think that oftentimes people get so excited about a podcast or you start to find your rhythm and your groove. And the immediate first thought is, I'm just going to expand, right? I'm just 2 days a week. What about 3 days? What if we did every day, right? And it's like that momentum, that excitement, that is amazing, right? But consistency will beat frequency every single time. And there's this crazy stat out there that like most podcasts, the majority of podcasts stop after episode 7. So like episode 7, it's kind of like that marriage thing too. They say like the 7-year itch. I don't know if that's true or not, but it's like consistency. If you get a system down so good that you're considering upping your frequency, I would argue just bank those shows up and release them in a consistent schedule. And you're going to not burn out and you're going to end up becoming a staple in people's lives. And so you have to choose a rhythm you can keep. And I always tell people, I'm like, start small and add to it later. Like there was a point where I went up to 3 days a week and it was just like a fun little short Friday one. And, and all of a sudden I was like, no, this is not sustainable. Like I have nothing more to say at the end of the week. My brain is gone. And so it's just like, stay consistent. The final, like a technical thing that I would consider and something I didn't get right, which is why I want people to not make this mistake, especially in this era, is because I was recording in my car and then in a tiny cramped closet, I never did video. And I am not saying to leverage the video. I think we're going to talk about that in a little bit with one of your questions. I'm not saying that you need to start a podcast and a YouTube presence and you're going to nail all these things. But I'm saying if you record video from day one, you have opportunity to go back into the vaults and to splice and dice and create different types of content. And so I wish, even if I wasn't going to use it, that I would have just been bold enough to be like, get on Zoom with me and we'll have our cameras on. Even right now, you're nodding your head and it changes the interaction where it's like, you're with me. I know you're with me. And so I was literally audio only for hundreds of episodes. I will never forget one time I didn't shut the camera off and a guest came on and I'm in the cramped closet and I have my pajamas on, no makeup. It was a SHIT show and I was so embarrassed. And then since the camera was on, I couldn't just shut it off. That's rude. And so I had to do this whole interview. I'm mortified the entire time. And so it's if you're in a closet, be like, dude, bro, I'm coming at you in my closet, but let's at least look at each other and converse. And so I would just say I would consider having video on from the beginning. So those are some of the things I would consider. So 2025 is all about clarity. It's all about consistency. It's about dialing in good audio. You can literally buy a $30 microphone. This is not about having a studio. And then just considering down the road what types of content would be helpful to have, even if you have no intention of using it now. And I think video would be that.
I love that you said that because I probably have a $30 to $50 microphone.
Yes.
And one of those $15 boxes with the foam on the inside. Yes. It's right here. You can't see it. Yes. But it's right here. Yep. And that's it.
That's all I did. And it was funny. I was actually writing an email the other day, Stacy, and I was talking about my podcast. And there was a point where Drew was like, you need to get out of that closet. You cannot even breathe in there. There is zero oxygen. It was and people can make cute closets. This was not that. And he was like, why do you not record at the desk or at the table? And I was like, well, the audio. And so then I'm researching $10,000 studio setups and the foam walls and all these things. Can we convert this closet? And I ended up buying a $30 foam box like the one. And I talk about it in the course of like, you don't need a whole studio for your body. You need one for your microphone. And the best part is like, then I could just bring it places, right? So it's just this little foam box. And it's like, that's literally all I needed. And all of a sudden I'm like, oh my gosh, the sun is on my face when I'm recording. I can breathe. This is like a whole different energy. And so it's like whatever your version of the closet is of like holding yourself back because of a belief, it's like when you break through that or you find a better solution or you don't use resources, but you're resourceful, dang, like the sky's the limit and the energy shifts. And I think podcasting is so much about emitting energy in a beautiful way through the airwaves, which is so cool.
Oh, I totally agree. That's so helpful. Thank you so much.
Yes. Okay. Next question.
Okay, so you kind of alluded to this a little bit in your last answer, but what are your best tips for managing content creation, social media when you don't have a team? Because, this is my side hustle.
Yes.
I have a full-time job. I've been teaching high school for 22 years, psychology, history, and I'm, I have my recording time on the weekend and then I have to process everything and get everything going. I've gotten the actual recording and editing down to, an hour and a half, which I think is amazing given how like where I started. But what I've noticed is that everything else is kind of falling by the wayside. So I used to do a weekly blog post. Now it's a weekly podcast. And I say, oh, it's going to be in the show notes. And there may or may not be some show notes. And my website, I've been needing to update that for only, I don't know, about 6 months to a year now. And you can't even find certain things about me on my website. And there may even be some stock photos on there somewhere. So how do you manage all of that?
Yes.
Without a team?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Well, I can so relate. And for the record, like when I started my podcast, I had one part-time VA. So I did not have like a team. Like for the entirety of this Gold Digger podcast, I've had one dedicated team member the entire time. So it's like not like we have this huge, like, talk to my producers. It's like me and Christy in the kitchen, like, what are we gonna do? And so just to like preface that, because some people do have massive teams. Okay, so one thing that I would encourage is leveraging AI to become your assistants in some of the areas. And there's new opportunity here in how you can do this, and you can do it very easily. So one thing that you could do, Stacy, is you can export the transcript. So there's a lot of different services that will give you transcripts. You can even have like a note taker on. If you record it on Zoom, you could have a note taker on that takes the notes and summarizes for you. But one thing that we've been doing is we'll take the transcripts and we'll import them into ChatGPT. And you could literally tell it, like, write show notes for me. This is the formatting I want. I want a 5-paragraph essay. I want an intro and an outro. I want 3 main points, whatever. And it could do a better job than not having anything, right? Like it might not be Stacy on a platter, but done is better than perfect, right? And so that would be one thing. And even with like my solo shows, I take such good notes in preparation for them that I can literally feed in my notes and my outline and the transcript and say, write me show notes for this episode. Write me the show description for this episode. Give me 5 title options for this episode. And so I would argue, and here's the thing, I'm not a huge like, yeah, AI. Like I'm not that girl. I am like, how do we leverage tools to get back to our lives? Like, how do we actually use these things that are resources so that we are freed up to be humans? And so that's where it's like this interesting juxtaposition. But I think it could solve a lot of problems for you in being your assistant and you training it of like, here's what I expect for show notes. Here's what I need for the show description. Based off of this transcript, give me 5 keyword rich lines that describe this episode, right? And so the output is only as good as the input. And inside of the podcast lab, we have a ChatGPT guide in there. So you can steal some of those prompts that I think would be super helpful. And so what I would say is that even I was just thinking about this, like while I'm in the energy of an interview, I forget things all the time, right? Like I'll be like, I'm going to link that in the show notes. Guess what? My brain does not close loops. The loops stay open until the end of time. And so what I would say is if you can work out into your workflow where you record and edit within an hour, and then you leverage AI for 20 minutes and you bust out description, show notes, title, and a social media caption, I think that is reasonable. And it keeps you in the energy and the excitement of that episode. Because I don't know about you, but if I've recorded an episode a month ago, I forget how awesome it was. I forget how fantastic it was. I forget what I talked about. I forget what I promised. And so it's like if you can build that into the energy exchange of recording, then you can rest easy and be like, that whole thing is done. And it doesn't mean that you have to show up on every platform and have, a Facebook post and an Instagram post and this and that and that. Figure out what you can commit to first and what is actually moving the needle. And then as you get that system down, you can move it up. But I will say that if you're importing in the transcript and your outline, you could probably get those assets wrapped up pretty quickly with just a little bit back and forth.
Oh yeah, that's such good advice. I'm the same way about AI.
Yes.
Find
Love
that
and hate.
I'm the kind of person who's so long-winded that I'll throw stuff in there and say, could you please like condense this for me? Because I just wrote 800 paragraphs and I only need one.
Yes. And I think that that's where too, it's like if you create almost like a workflow around that, you can very easily bust those things out. And again, they might not be 100% you, but in these early stages when it's just you, yourself, and you, like done is better than perfect. And like just getting it out there and getting in that rhythm of creation will make it so much easier for you.
Yeah, and the done is better than perfect literally is something that I run through my head. I have Jenna's voice in my head when I am putting my show notes, my description, whatever it is that I'm doing together. I need to get it out. I have committed to doing this every week and I need the consistency. It makes me feel good. My listeners depend on it. And I just have to get it out there because you can always go back and change it later.
Absolutely. And you know what's interesting?
Not that I will, but I could.
There is a parallel here to what you teach people about like re-identifying, right? Like what is your identity in your body? There's a theme, there's a through line here right now of you proving to yourself that you are somebody who shows up. That is a really interesting identity for a lot of us to start to clothe ourselves in. Because I think a lot of us have had these ideas and like, it's like, I'm going to start the journal. And then like 2 days in, the journal doesn't exist. Or I'm going to start this, food plan. And then it's like 1 weekend, life hits a fan and now you're ordering DoorDash, right? And so there's a really interesting aspect that I think is a through line here, both with your health journey, but also with your podcasting journey of I need to adopt the identity of someone who shows up, even if it's not perfect. And I think that there is beautiful unwiring and rewiring happening within yourself as you see yourself showing up and doing it, even if it's not totally done, even if it's not perfect, because it's never going to be. And I think that it's really a beautiful practice for a lot of us who have committed to things in the past and not been able to hold on to them is like, wow, I am somebody who shows up. That is a huge identity that a lot of us have trouble adopting. And so the fact that you're doing it and you're like, hey, some of these things are falling by the wayside and that's the reality. I think that is way more important that your identity is rooted in, I'm someone who shows up. I only share stuff I'm genuinely obsessed with. And so when I kept seeing Bowl and Branch sheets all over Instagram, I was like, okay, are these actually worth the hype? Drew and I have been using their sheets and duvets for over a year now. And honestly, our bedroom feels like a completely different space. The moment you touch these sheets, you'll get it. They're incredibly soft to start, but they literally get softer every time you wash them. They're made from 100% organic cotton, so they're super durable. And they're breathable, which is perfect for piling on cozy layers without turning into a furnace at 2 a.m. This is hands down the best bedding I've slept on, and I'm so genuinely excited for you to try it. Start building your sanctuary of comfort this fall with Bowl and Branch. For a limited time, get 20% off your first set of sheets plus free shipping at bowlandbranch.com/goaldigger. That's Bowl and Branch, BOLLAND branch.com/goaldigger to save 20% and unlock free shipping. Exclusions apply. When we were young, we dreamed of castles and fairy tales. And as we grow up, those dreams might shift into building something real, like starting a business. You need a website, payment systems, a logo, and a way to reach customers. It can all be overwhelming and confusing, but thankfully, that's where today's sponsor, Shopify, comes in. Shopify powers millions of businesses around the world and 10% of all US e-commerce, from big brands to folks just getting started. They offer beautiful, ready-to-go website templates so you don't need design skills to look professional. Their AI tools help with product images, descriptions, discount codes, and more. Shopify also makes it simple to run email and social campaigns so people can find you. And if you ever feel stuck, their award-winning 24/7 support is always available. Turn those dreams into and give them the best shot at success with Shopify. Sign up for your $1 per month trial and start selling today at shopify.com/goaldigger. Go to shopify.com/goaldigger. Shopify.com/goaldigger. One of our favorite ways of earning extra income as a couple has been by hosting our spaces on Airbnb. Drew and I have always loved finding creative ways to make our spaces work for us, but let's be real, between being parents, running a business, and juggling travel, we don't always have the time to manage all the little details. On top of that, we live in Minnesota and our properties are in a different state, so handling the day-to-day just isn't possible for us as hosts. That's why I think Airbnb's co-host network is such a smart option. With the co-host network, you can hire a high-quality local co-host to take care of your home and your guests. They handle all the day-to-day management, from guest communication to on-the-ground support, so the stay runs smoothly even when you're away for work or traveling. Think of them as your local hosting superhero who knows the ins and the outs of creating amazing guest experiences. If you've ever thought about hosting but it seemed a bit overwhelming, now it is easier than ever. Find a co-host at airbnb.com/host.
So in terms of, I'm about 6 months in and I have seen some growth. I definitely followed the advice in the podcast lab and I launched a trailer a couple of weeks before I put out the podcast. I started with 3 episodes. There was a little bit of binge worthiness going on there as well, getting the episode out every week. And then I've seen kind of my listenership go up and down depending on, did I reach some new people this week or did I not? And so I'm wondering what your best tips are for getting the word out to people, for finding your people, because I am pretty niched. It's biking and it's wellness. And the reality is that anyone who listens to my podcast who wants to feel better, who wants to be more active, is going to get something out of it. It doesn't have to be biking, but it was biking for me. And so that's why I really focus on that. So I like and appreciate the fact that you said at the beginning that being this niche is actually a good thing, because I struggle with that all the time. But my biggest, issue or struggle in the past 5 years or so being in business has been trying to find my people. I've been having a really hard time finding my people. Help.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. I love this. So one of my favorite things, and this is like a blessing and a curse of what I teach and what I love, is that it's a long game, right? And same with Pinterest, right? It's like people will go on and they'll be like, okay, where are my impressions? And I'm like, this is a long game in a good way, because the long game, while it means that like up front, it's going to take a little bit, it also means that this thing can keep running and giving you results after you're done or after you pause or just like while you're still doing it, right? And to me, that's why the long game is always worth it. So a few like tactical things. So one thing we want to do is make sure that every aspect that has any sort of text for your podcast, we are thinking about keywords that people are typing in. So I want for you to think of Spotify and Apple Podcasts and any other platform almost as a Google. And I want for you to think of that when it comes to titling your shows, when it comes to your description. I want you to consider, what are people actually typing in? Like, it was interesting. The other day, I was looking for something, a podcast on something super niche. I can't even remember what it was. And like, I was just literally typing into Apple Podcasts like it was Google, right? Like, how do I blah, 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 whatever it was. And so SEO and keyword strategy is going to be a really strong thing for you. And also like understanding, how does my audience ask these questions, or how do they use language around it? Because sometimes too, there's like a chasm between the language that we use to describe what we do and the language someone else might use. And so that's an interesting thing. The one other thing that I want for you to think about is, oh, actually I have 2 more things. So 2 other things to think about. So one in every single episode, how are you encouraging people to share this, right? So, one thing that we recently incorporated into our show is like before we transition into an ad break, which can be disruptive for listeners, but also the way that we fund this show is we'll say, hey, we're about to pivot into an ad break. But before we do, I want for you to think of one person in your life who this message would resonate with, or who is struggling with X, Y, or Z, or who could be inspired by blah, blah, blah. Send this to them. And it doesn't have to be during an ad break. It can be anywhere in the show, right? And so the best we were studying like the top podcasts out there. What are they doing, right? Like we're literally downloading transcripts and like looking at this. And they're talking about like inviting people in and invite someone in to discuss it. Like meet with a friend and talk about this episode. Like that is amazing. The second thing I want for you to do is to do some research in the general category you're in, but even outside of the category your podcast is in, and pitch yourself to other people's shows. Okay. Because I feel like, especially once you have your own podcast and you have that track record and you know you have the equipment to sound decent on somebody else's show, getting into other people's audiences and either doing a podcast exchange where you come on my show, I come on your show, great. Or I'm just pitching. I see this hole in what you're talking about, and I feel like I could fill it because X, Y, or Z. Or I bet your audience is dying to hear from somebody who has X, Y, or Z. And this is how I can offer that to you. Getting on other people's shows is probably the best way, because remember, at the beginning of this episode, we talked about podcast listeners listen to podcasts. And if they're already on someone else's show and listening, how hard is it for them to click over and subscribe when you offer value and you offer a relatable story? And so maybe build it into your rhythm. I know your time is already strapped. And so that's why I'm like, stick to one episode a week. Don't even consider expanding. And then what would it look like if once or twice a month you got onto somebody else's show, right? That the best part about it is all you have to do is the interview, right? When you're coming on this show, you're not doing the show notes. You're not like, you just got to show up and be you. And like, what a gift, right? It's like almost like the back alley way of growing something where you're like, I get all the benefits and I just have to show up and talk. That's so cool. So get into the consistency of like engaging with other people's communities and pitching yourself. You basically were a part of my community and I knew that. And that's how you got onto this show, right? And so it's like, we can overthink that. But I would just say like, almost like Ariel, like I want to be where the people are. Like, where are your people? And like, how can your message be something new or different or relatable for them? And like, how can you just infiltrate and add value in that way? And I think that would be like such a great practice. Even just one show a quarter could help bring in those new listeners as well.
Well, that's great.
Love it.
That's really helpful. I love that because I definitely, the idea of getting on other people's podcasts, and like you said, it only has to be a couple times a month. Yes. And then I mean, even just other audiences,
5 podcasts a year of being on other people's shows, like that would be incredible, right? And the other thing too that I think people get wrong about podcasting is, and I've seen this a million times over, is you think that the people with the biggest shows move the needle the most. When in reality, I would argue that it is the micro influencers, it is the niche creators that have true movements. I just read this amazing Substack the other day of this woman who went on one of the biggest podcasts in the world. And she thought it was going to like blow up her book sales. She was an author and she was like, oh my gosh. And she's like, the optics of going on there were amazing, right? My friends are texting me like, are you okay? How are you doing? This is amazing. And she's like, the reality is it didn't even move the needle at all. And I am saying this as somebody who has a large podcast. I have found that my guests that serve niche audiences that have 10,000 followers, 5,000, 1,000 followers, this is a big opportunity for them. They are going to leverage this opportunity in a different way, and their audience trusts them and follows them anywhere. And so don't get it in your head of like, I need to pitch that top wellness podcast. I would say don't even try. I mean, try, absolutely try. But I would say that the needle movers are the people who have built that trust and that faith and that audience that listens and pays attention. And like, I would go after those people. And I think you have so much to offer in that realm.
Oh, that's so helpful. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. Okay. What do you got?
So in 2025,
yes,
where do you think a podcast fits best into the ecosystem of a business? Do you think that we should focus more on nurturing our current audience with our podcast,
Yep.
or should we be more using it to reach new listeners, bring them into our world? I know ideally we should do both, but what
Yeah.
do you think is working best right now?
Yeah, I love that. In terms of the ecosystem, the way that I see it is like a podcast is a trust builder and an authority establisher, meaning like you, again, just you showing up consistently is showing your audience so much about you in terms of your reliability. You practice what you preach, you're showing up, right? And so I would say the first, like layer one of the onion, the best place to start is that you are nurturing people who already know about you and already know there, right? So it's like you're just their friend that's showing up every week and bringing them value, stories, whatever that is. But I also think that if we take what we were just talking about, even with like SEO and keywords, it is a really great expander. And again, this is the long game. So like one thing that a lot of people don't realize about podcasts is they'll look at like their immediate downloads on an episode and think like this signifies if this was successful or not successful by my standards, whatever the standard is. And what's interesting is that like for our show, about 50% of our downloads are on past episodes, right? Sometimes there's a rhyme and a reason, and sometimes there's absolutely no rhyme or reason. It's people typing in those search terms of like, how do I market on Pinterest or how do I grow an email list, right? And so what's beautiful about it is that like, yes, your fresh content is really exciting and awesome and it's a great value, but also people are still searching for things that you created in the past, which is why I love the long game. And so I think that discovery mostly is going to happen through your keywords and through your guesting strategy, both you being a guest on other people's shows and also having guests come on your show that are willing to share their episode, right? One of the things that we worked into our system is when people commit to coming on our show, we make them check a box that says, I agree that I will promote this episode, because we had so many people come on, have these epic interviews, and to them, it's just another interview, right? It's like, I've done 30 and here's just one more in the lineup. And it's like, no, no, no. Like, we want this to be like a joint collaboration. And so again, if you have people come on your show, like, what is that commitment that you expect of them? Like, will you accept my collaborators on my Instagram post? Like, will you tell your audience about this? Because it's going to be so great. You're going to be dying to share this hot take. And so getting really clear on that. And so for me, it's like, I would never start a podcast and try to chase down sponsors. Like, I think that if monetization and sponsorship is the number one goal, I don't think that podcasting is going to work long term. But I would say, like, how do I build trust? How do I shift that trust into my email list or something, an asset that I own and can control, even if I'm not going to leverage it right now? And then how does that lead to conversion? Again, you don't have to have the offer or you don't have to know like what that next step is. But if you're building a list of loyal listeners and you have that lever that you can pull if and when you have the offer or you have the launch or you have something you want to do, that's how you ultimately own it. Because the issue is that so many people are building these things on platforms they don't own and can't control, with followers that don't actually infiltrate the ecosystem. And it's like, how do you actually create a podcast that guides people into that space where they want more? You're adding more value. You have that more personal relationship. And then again, you have that lever that you can pull if and when you want to. And so I think this is essentially like, if I look at the ecosystem, I'm like, your podcast is essentially the content engine that can fuel everything else, right? It is the thing that you can become known for. It is the thing that people will go back to. It is the library that exists long after you stop publishing. And so you can do like nurture and attract, but I would say pick one main goal of like, this is the result I'm tracking here. It's not downloads. It's how do I get people off of the podcast in somewhere where I can connect with them on a deeper level.
Oh gosh, that makes so much sense. And that's so helpful because, I mean, of course, you know, it helps people really trust us. And
yes,
like you said, the consistency, knowing that we're going to show up and all of those pieces. And then we can also bring more people into our world at the same time too.
Yeah.
So
I remember the day that I decided to start a podcast, and I was listening to Amy Porterfield's podcast. She is like the OG of podcasting. She had a podcast. I literally didn't know there was an app on your phone for podcasts. So I would go to her website every week and hit play, and like my phone would go black and I'd have to like re-get the phone back up. And I remember she was talking about an offer she was creating that wasn't even an offer yet, right? There's no sales page, there's no offer. She was just creating it. And in my head, I was like, take my money. Like, you have given me so much. Like, I don't even know what this thing is or if I need it, but like, how can I repay you for showing up and being my coach without knowing I exist, right? And it hit me just like how showing up consistently, even when that person doesn't know you exist and there's this parasocial relationship, is so powerful because it's like reciprocity is at play with podcasting in the sense of like, if you continue to show up and you continue to deliver and you offer value, at some point it's going to come back to you. And I think that it's such a beautiful exchange because it's on their timing, right? There's no pressure tactics. It's not this pressure cooker. It's like in your own timing, you will come. If I've given you value, that's like the most beautiful thing. So I love it. I think it feels way less like sleazy and scammy in my mind.
Yeah, we don't like that.
No. We have time for one final question. So what do you got?
So this is kind of going back to the video piece, and it has to do with YouTube. And I feel like I'm seeing everywhere that people are saying you have to be on YouTube, you have to be on YouTube. So do you think that adding the video and adding YouTube to your podcast is a helpful strategy for audience reach? Or do you think you find new people there? Or do you think it's just kind of a way of enhancing what you're already doing? Do you feel like with YouTube, you really should be more leaning into YouTube Shorts or YouTube content specifically for YouTube? I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. I have strong opinions on this, and it's so hard because, okay, it's a double-edged sword, right? Like, I 1,000% see the movement, the value, all of the good things of YouTube. I think YouTube is a great search engine based place to find your people and serve them. I went into podcasting to not have to care what I looked like, to sit down to a freaking mic and talk, right? Like, in my bones today, my kids, we're getting ready. We're eating breakfast. I have this little mirror I bring to the table while I'm eating breakfast next to them, getting my makeup on. And they go, "Oh, Mom, you podcasting today?" Yeah, I am. Because now I'm on video. And this is not what it started as. Like literally the only time I wear makeup is this. Like, so here's my thing.
This is the first time I've worn makeup in months.
Girl. So, okay. So I'm talking to you. So here's my thing. Yes, it could be absolutely advantageous to be on YouTube. I would be an idiot to say no. But if it is going to hinder your delivery, your ability to show up, your ability to get things published, the way you feel when you're speaking, screw it. That's what I think. And I will tell you, as somebody who actually invested in YouTube about a year ago, lots of money to like, let's see if we can make this show work on YouTube. Guess what? My audience is listening. We are busy moms. When I think of my own listener habits, I am not watching talking heads on YouTube. I am listening as I am doing the dishes. I am listening in the shower. I am not somebody that's sitting there and wanting to watch people talk in an office. That's just not my energy. And so when I was trying to do YouTube, it was taking so much of what I loved about podcasting away from me, the approachability, the ability to just sit down and hit record. If it's dark outside, I'm not thinking about lighting. I'm not thinking about being worried about looking at my notes. Like, it stripped away so much of what I loved about podcasting that it ultimately wasn't worth it. So here's what I'll say. If you love being on camera, if you love the production value, if you love all of that, absolutely positively start a video podcast. 1,000%. If you have even an ounce of curiosity of how this is going to impact how you show up, if you're worried about what shirt you're going to wear on your interview, if you're concerned about if your lip color is the right color, do not record the video. You will probably never use it. Have it so that it exists. But I love podcasting for all the reasons that do not include video. And that's worked for me. And so essentially what we ended up going down to is we will record the video with guests. I will not record video when I'm on a solo show because I am sloughing it and just delivering. And with guests, we will create 2 pieces of content for them to share and for us to share. And that is it. So a 40-minute video will turn into 30-second clips. And that's all you're going to get, folks, because that's the heart of what we do and why we do it. So I'm not blind to what's happening on YouTube, but it's a whole different ballgame, right? It's two different courses. It's the podcast lab and a YouTube class, because you're going to have to learn how to do these thumbnails and do all these different things. And like, if that's what you want to do, that's a whole different ballgame. And it's one that I just don't want to play. I don't know.
Bless you. I love you. I needed to hear that today.
Yes.
Thank you.
I know. And I feel like people are freaking out because it's like, yeah, YouTube is also having a moment along with podcasting. But then I'm like, every time I get to the heart of it, because even one of my best friends is doing video for her podcast, and she was like freaking out about like what the lighting and this and that and that. And I was like, can I ask you a question? I was like, is it worth it? Because like you talk differently when you're on video than when you're just sitting down doing mic. Do you think that having the 80 people on YouTube that are watching this thing, and who knows how long they're actually tuning in for, is that worth disrupting the experience for the 90% of listeners who are tuning in during school drop off? Like, do you know what I mean? And so it's just like, for me, it just wasn't worth it. And when I looked at my own self, I'm like, I am not watching two people sitting in an office talking to each other. Like, I've got other things to do while I'm listening. So anyways, my ADHD is showing, that's for sure. Stacy, thank you for coming on. Thank you for being just an amazing human being. Where can everybody find you and connect with you and listen to your show and cheer you on in this beautiful journey? Give us all the places.
Oh, thank you so much. So my podcast is called the Biking Wellness Podcast. It's available wherever you get your podcast. So all you have to do is search Biking Wellness. And you can also find me on Instagram at Sassy Cycling. It's SASCY Cycling. It's a little play on my name. Yeah. And I would love to connect with anyone who's interested in either talking about podcasting or biking or wellness or just having fun moving your body.
Yes. Oh, you are just a gem, and I'm so excited for you. And I just love watching what you're doing. I'm like over here, like biggest fan. So thank you for your vulnerability and for showing up and just for asking like fantastic questions. You're the best. Oh, Stacy is literally just like a beam of light. Like, I hope you can just hear her heart. I'm sure you could, as she was on the show. I love being a part of such a beautiful, diverse, rich community of people who are literally changing other people's lives. Like, Stacy is absolutely changing people's lives, their relationship with their bodies and their health. And she's doing it with joy. Like, my favorite thing is she's like, this is meant to be fun. All of it. Moving your body, podcasting. She brings the fun with her, and you can just feel that. So thank you, Stacy, for being vulnerable and coming on the show. Thank you for being a student of mine. Again, if podcasting is something you're even just curious about, or you're thinking about, or you hosted a fake podcast when you were a kid like we did, go to freepodcastclass.com. Join me for Podcasting 101, how to start, record, and profit from your show. Let me save you so many hours, so much frustration, so many dollars as you start and launch your own show out into the world, just like Stacy did. I would love to teach you. freepodcastclass.com. And if you know somebody who should have their own podcast, send this episode to them. There are those people in your life who respond to a "how are you" with a 5-minute voice memo. Those are the people that should sit down to the mic for real, and launch something out into the show. There's never been a better time to launch your podcast. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Goal Digger Podcast. Until next time, keep on digging your biggest goals. Thanks for listening to the Goal Digger Podcast. I hope today left you inspired and equipped with something you can put into action as you build a business that truly supports your life. If this episode resonated with you, here's how you can help the show reach even more entrepreneurs. Hit follow, share it with a friend who's building something meaningful, and if you're feeling generous, leave us a review. Those reviews help other listeners discover these conversations when they need them the most. This show has become so much more than I ever imagined, and it's because of listeners like you who show up and share. You are helping build something that will inspire entrepreneurs for years to come. For show notes, links, and resources, head to golddiggerpodcast.com. Keep digging your biggest goals. The world needs what you're building.